Haven't won the second of a back-to-back yet. Is that a cause for concern, John?
Well, you could look at it in a number of ways, I guess. Probably just the immediate takeaway is, the Kings struggle with back-to-backs. You think about the 3 they played, and they looked horrible in all of those, and deflated and without energy and all that stuff. So you could easily say that it was a back-to-back problem. But it could also be something else. I mean, you point out not just the Clippers and the Pelicans, but you can throw the Rockets in there too. I mean, they've lost 2 games to the Warriors, but they're more of just a bugaboo team for the Kings. But like Houston, New Orleans, and the Clippers, whether it was a back-to-back or not, I mean, the 2 Clippers games were back-to-backs, but the 2 games in Houston weren't back-to-backs. The third game, that in-season tournament game where the Kings kind of just fell off after kind of a nice start against the Pelicans, wasn't a back-to-back. There are just times where maybe it's specific opponents have the best of them. I mean, you think about Houston, they're kind of big. They've got some length and some defenders. New Orleans is big in the middle. They've got a lot of length all around. And the Clippers are also very long. I mean, there's a lot of talk about maybe that kind of being a bothersome thing for the Kings. And we've seen that last season. I think when they played New Orleans, they struggled a few times. I think, Minnesota has some length and some size last season. I think they got the best of the Kings a few times. This has been kind of a common trend that maybe this is kind of an opponent thing. Do you think that could have anything to do with it?
Yeah, I mean, it could for sure. I mean, the Kings' length, I think, is an issue. I think we're starting to really see that. And I think that's just posing a bigger problem, like going forward. Like, do they need more length? I mean, there's been so much discussion about Harrison Barnes. And I saw a good article today, actually on Reddit, talking about how the Kings don't have that true 4 and that they kind of just have 2 threes going back between the power forward position and Keegan Murray. I think they just need some more length, really. And I think even with Barnes, I like Barnes as a starter, and I don't think technically Murray's the starting power forward. But people are saying, like, Murray should just be the 3 now, and they need to get some more length at that 4 position. Because, I think the length is really starting to affect the Kings.
I have a question off of that. I hear they don't have enough size. Harrison Barnes is not like a true 4 or whatever. I mean, in a lot of ways, he kind of is. But I see where the point really makes a lot of sense in that the Kings are a little undersized at center. Yeah. I mean, Sabonis is strong and has a presence down there, but he's been bothered by bigger guys. I think Zubac has gotten the best of him a few times. I think he performed better in that third New Orleans game, but Valanciunas seems to always have his number. Maybe not have his number, but you can kind of see a discernible difference in the impact, and you can see Sabonis get bothered. So, like, if the need for more length is, in fact, what is kind of the solution to all this, I feel like it's not even so much Murray and Barnes' fault. And I don't know if it's anybody's fault. I don't know if I want to use that phraseology, but I'm going to use it anyways because I don't have any way else to put it. But I guess it's more like Sabonis' fault because he's just...
That's fair.
Not a big...
How tall is Sabonis? He's like 6'8"?
I think he's probably 6'10".
Like, how tall is he true? Because he's listed at 6'11". I think he's 6'10", I think he's more like 6'9". He looks so small against true centers. I'm like, dang, this guy's kind of small. Maybe he's probably taller than 6'8". But I want to say I would lean closer to 6'9" than 6'10".
I mean, with shoes on, he's probably at least 6'9.5", and then, you make it 6'10" with the law of rounding up. But,
yeah.
I mean, he's not big. There are a lot of people outside the Kings fan base and those that watch the Kings that question Sabonis. And you hear a lot of talk about, like, is he tough enough? Is he too soft and all this? I'm like, he's just not big,
Yeah.
I mean, it has put them at a disadvantage against longer teams. And I think one of the things you've also seen is that against some of these longer teams, I think in that New Orleans game, the in-season tournament game, I think Fox had a bunch of turnovers, and I think Monk might have even had like 3 or 4 turnovers. And then the other night against the Clippers, I think Monk and Fox both had 4 turnovers. So it's like, you could talk about length and stuff like that, but the penetrators, the guys that touch paint and then can kick it out and spray it out, they're having trouble too. And, I mean, it's almost like you can't even put it on one person or 2 people in terms of the lack of size and whatnot. I mean, the whole team seems to be bothered by size, if anything. Mm-hmm. But is there anything to that?
I don't know. I just feel like it's all coming back to Harrison Barnes right now, personally. Like, now that I think about it, I always give Barnes a lot of, like, slack and whatnot. I don't think it's his fault. But maybe just get it'd have to be in a trade at this point. We just signed him to a 3-year deal. But maybe get someone better suited for this role. If they want to get better, they need to find a better role player for that 4 position. I don't think Barnes is making him better, and it's not his fault per se. I just think they need more length at that 4, a better defender, just like a taller 3-and-D guy at the 4 position. I just feel like that's the biggest thing holding the Kings back, and I'm starting to actually see that.
I mean, I think personnel issues are something that's kind of creeped more and more into the discourse. I guess before considering another factor, kind of centering on that Barnes thing. I mean, does that almost set up an argument for the Kings should trade for Pascal Siakam? I mean...
Yeah, right? I know. It's kind of weird, huh? I mean, I don't think you need Siakam specifically. I think Siakam would be a little too much, just because not even so much his contract. It's more that he's not a 3-and-D guy. If he can hit the 3 well, I'd be like, all for it, really. But he can't. It is interesting. I would be like, I would say no to Siakam, but like if we got him, I don't know. Now I'm kind of like torn on that.
The only reason I bring that up is because I agree with you. I mean, like, he'd be longer and a better defender, but all the other factors, no shooting, kind of being more of someone suited for a Sabonis-type role and kind of getting a redundancy there. But, you know, we talked about this when the Kings re-signed Harrison Barnes, was like, that was a good move because it was the right move. There wasn't really another option. You could have swung for the fences, but that would have been a dangerous gamble, say, on someone like Kyle Kuzma or something like that. And we can kind of all agree that Barnes, given the makeup of the team and the style of the team, is better than Kuzma. And it's almost just like you're kind of just stuck with Barnes, you know?
Yeah.
And it just, unfortunately, seems kind of the case. And I don't think that's all bad, because I do think that 2 6'8" at the 3 and 4 positions with Barnes and Murray and Sabonis can work. And it's not like super undersized, super small in the modern NBA. But thinking about another thing here is, in all these games that they've lost, back-to-back or not, but kind of talking about the Houston games, some of the New Orleans games, and these Clippers games, is that when things get hard for the Kings, they just have a habit of letting go of the rope. And Mike Brown said after the Clippers loss on Tuesday that the thing that was most disappointing about the game was the fact that, you know, sometimes you just have to fight, and our team didn't fight tonight. You know, they came off a great win against Brooklyn where they played both ends of the floor. They hit a franchise record for 3-pointers made in a single game. And the defense and offense were feeding off each other. It was a pretty manageable win. They maintained a lead, played really well, and things were coming to them. They were able to play the way they wanted to play. Threes were falling. Against the Clippers, things weren't going their way so much. I mean, I think they started the game 4 of 11 from 3, but then they didn't hit another 3 until like midway or late in the third quarter. They were just getting stomped on by some of the Clippers' stars. I mean, I don't think anybody could really stop Kawhi Leonard at a certain point there. And they bothered the Kings with their length. The Kings were put in a position where they really would have had to claw and fight to make it a game. And we've seen them do that. We've seen them get dirty. We've seen them play this chaotic style of basketball that they can thrive off of. But like Mike Brown said, they didn't fight, and there's been times where they do that. And it's almost like, what happens when the Kings can't rest their hat on something? What happens when there's a little bit of adversity? Which is surprising, because this team played so well through adversity last season. I mean, granted, they were healthy, but they were a good road team. You know, they put together some nice stretches on both ends of the floor in those road situations late in the game. You know, this is a team that should be thriving off of that stuff. And now they're not really doing that as much. Do you think that there's like some kind of a fight issue within this team?
I mean, it sure seems like it, because they were so resilient last year. It seemed like they had the fight within them every game. They just don't seem like they had the fight that they did. Maybe they're tired more from playing both sides of the ball a little harder. Maybe there's not enough on the line at this point. Last year they had that ambition to break that 16-year playoff drought. Maybe there's not enough on the line.
I mean, another thing that Mike Brown has consistently said this season from the start was that, well, the thing that's going to make this year different is we weren't hunted. People didn't like pay too much attention to us on the schedule, and we very well could have benefited from that. Now we are the hunted. I mean, does that have anything to do with it? Are the Kings just going up against a little bit more of a well-prepared opponent this season?
I mean, that's a good point, honestly. They're the team on not everyone's schedules, but they're a better team in this league now. People are going to be, like you said, more prepared to play them harder. Again, they've only lost to 4 teams, right? 9 games, 4 teams. I mean, the Pelicans are a good team. Where are they ranked? Are they really good? The Pelicans are in the 10th seed at 13 and 11th. The Warriors are 10 and 13. The Rockets are 11 and 9, and the Clippers are 13 and 10. So, I mean, they're good. Most teams in the West are pretty good. But I believe the Kings do have a pretty good record against the top teams of the league. Like, we beat the Timberwolves. We beat the Thunder. We beat the Mavericks. We beat the Nuggets. We beat the Lakers. We beat the Suns. I mean,
It's true.
they beat a lot of good teams. And they haven't really lost to any bad teams either.
No, that's true. But it's at a crossroads where certain trends have kind of picked up. It's hard to tell if it's specific opponents, the makeup of opponents and the personnel, the timing of things, the fight of the team, or the impression that opponents have of the Kings and the preparation they have to put into play. I don't know if it's probably a combination of all of those. And throw in also the playing the two ends of the floor and what that kind of does to this team. It's something that I think this group can figure out. I mean, I think one of the things Mike Brown said after the Clippers game was he was also disappointed in the fact that, you're looking at the first half where the Clippers scored 70 points on 60% from the field with 30 plus points in the paint. And he was kind of annoyed that his team was talking about what they need to do on offense. They kept talking about what this thing and that thing on offense when what they should have been talking about is the defense. And with all the focus on the back-to-backs after they beat Brooklyn, knowing that there was a second of a back-to-back coming up and the struggles they'd had in the two first instances of those kinds of games, they were asking players and Mike Brown about that. And like Malik Monk said, I mean, you have to come at it with a defense-first mindset. And you talk about the playing two ends of the floor and the fight and all that stuff. That kind of comes to the surface most when you kind of think about it that way. And, Mike Brown said our team thinks of punching another team back as scoring. And what we really should be thinking about punching teams back as, especially against playoff teams, is punching them back with stops and making things grimy and ugly and making things difficult. I think the Kings are in an interesting point this season. I think they've proven they're really good, but are they great? I don't think they've proven that at all. I mean, we're only, 23 games into the season, so it's really early, but they've definitely made things interesting because they've shown a lot of good, but they've shown a lot of bad, and the bad has looked like when they lose, more often than not, it's a pretty bad loss.